Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once more to some more FACEIT League action. And we are looking at our second match of the night, quote-unquote second match, as unfortunate start earlier with South America, but we're here now, two teams that are sitting near the top of that North America table. It is Daystar taking on Iliad, Artemis, and Dex. Going into the season, Daystar, we expected them to stay good. We expected them to be in the form that they're in right now. Iliad, Artemis wasn't quite the beast that they were before. Jesus Christ, they weren't the beast now. You know, they are a different breed. It feels like they were all right last season, but now they feel like one of those potential top contenders.
Yeah, Iliad Artemis coming into the season was more of a question mark for us. Were they going to be able to improve on what they did last season? Granted, they struggled out the gate, were able to stay in Masters Division, but this season that question mark has kind of been answered here in their first couple of games here. Granted, they've already played 7 games, which is more than a lot of teams at this point. I think they're one of the only teams that has really started to get into the second third of their season. And with this game tonight, they'll be halfway through that second third. And you talk about the records for both these two teams. Iliad Artemis sitting 5-2 right now. That currently has them actually in that top 4. Daystar, though, only has played 5 games so far, but they're 4-1, just sitting outside that top 4. If you look at the standings right now, they're technically sitting 5th. But, I mean, like you said, Daystar has kind of picked up right where they left off from last season, and it's not necessarily a big surprise. Iliad Artemis, like I said, though, they had a lot of question marks coming into the season, and so far, a lot of those question marks have really been answered with really, really great play so far to start off the season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, we expect that out of Daystar, but Iliad Artemis, it is great to see them really evolve because they ended up placing 11th, I believe it was, last season. And now you're in a weird situation where everything is all topsy-turvy. Suddenly, Boop Troop and Iliad Artemis are two of the best teams this season, and now, last season, they were arguably two of the worst, depending how you looked at it. So it's definitely an interesting situation, but speaking of interesting situations, we've seen it be picked a couple of times. It was technically picked earlier today, but Ilios, we are headed back to once again. And, you know, I'll say it, it's starting to come up a little bit more, Ilios. I kind of like seeing Ilios, but it feels like we have yet to see a really competitive Ilios yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Ilios has started now become that map that everyone's going to. Like we kind of talked about in South America earlier today. At first, it was really Oasis was a map that a lot of teams were picking, but now as teams are starting to get into the middle part or halfway through their season here in NA Masters, they're really wanting to switch up a little bit. So Ilios is a really, really good point for a really good map to do that on, because one, you can still play a lot of compositions, which is really what Control is all about, being able to play so many different compositions, whether it's dive, brawl, poke, rush, or a mixture of them. Ilios, you can really do that here. Baptiste, though, will be something we do not see this first map. And Bap, like me and you, Hunter, have been saying now for the last couple weeks, Bap has really started coming to their own, starting to be one of those main 3 supports you're always seeing picked. So getting rid of the map 1, not necessarily the biggest deal. And I think it's just really a safe ban from both sides, or at least just a safe ban here out first.
Yeah, and it's going to force the on a break style for the most part. You could definitely still run like Curie Lucio. It's going to depend on the map, and it's going to depend on the team as well. But I think the way that we have seen both of these teams in the past, both of them being very comfortable on that Lucio, I think it wouldn't be a surprise whatsoever if they opted to, you know, go towards that Curie, that Lucio. There's also the potential that with it being Ilios, maybe there's a possibility that is simply a protection ban. I don't think it is, though. Baptiste wouldn't be the first character I would choose if I was going for the route of protection. But maybe this is a situation where, you know, Artemis is simply expecting them to come out on something that would require a Lucio Bap, which would come to the case if you were running like a Ramatra or maybe even a Sigma, which Ramatra still pretty favored in a lot of situations.
Are still favored, but you're really starting to see a lot of teams go away from Ramatra, more back over to the Orisa here now, and even still seeing a little bit of Hazard here and there as well, even with Block Slop being negated and really nerfed back down to an acceptable level. It seems like Hazard is probably the go-to, but Ramatra still has its opportunities. But on a map like this, you see a lot of dive. from the most parts. Diva, Winston, or something you could definitely see. Wrecking Ball, Doomfist are always wild cards you could expect to see as well if teams want to run dive. But I always kind of look at Wrecking Ball and Doomfist comps as more chaos comps, more of just the team's always going to constantly be moving. So if you're not necessarily ready for it, you're going to be back in the spawn room pretty quickly here. But right now, still waiting on that second ban to come through. So it looks like Baptiste ban coming out early really is affecting. I think it's Daystar with this next ban.
Yeah, and both teams do have substitutes, which I believe we have seen Kiwi in the past. So we'll see what's going to come out of that situation right here. But we'll see what the situation is. Both teams are definitely making picks. We're definitely making their selection. So everybody is here this time. There are no excuses. At least we can only hope. But either way, we found out that second ban, and Genji is... Honestly, that's pretty simple, honestly. I think that's one of the better picks you can make. Ilios is a great map for that character. Makes complete sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you said that Ilios was a great map, I started thinking about it a little bit more, and then you can immediately go to a lot of the maps or a lot of the points on this map and say, hey, high ground is really, really important. A lot of these ones, Genji can easily traverse up there. The Tracer can do that as well, but you need a lot of tech to do that, or you could just be trying to play something else, maybe like a Venture to get up there, but you don't really see Venture that often. Tracer is the right way to go in this situation if you want to be running one of those flex DPS, and probably you will be at least running flex DPS on every map.
Honestly, yeah, you are going to. And now with that Baptiste gone early, that is something that we are potentially going to see a little further down the line when we get into situations of... I'll talk about that in a second. But in situations where we go to push maps...
I didn't see it.
Where we go into push maps where that Baptiste is going to be very heavily picked. I think you could argue to some extent as well when you go into Flashpoint as well. I think you figured out why we're laughing now. What is bro? For context, our bro Headrammer is here.
X by BA Productions.
What is? Oh yeah, that's what's happening right now. That's right.
And the Iliad stream.
The Iliad stream. Mott's here. It's a party.
So many people from CGL. But yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, again, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I'm just going to go back to just the records overall here. Iliad Artemis, I mean, they've been impressing us a lot this season, and this is not a spot where we necessarily expected to see them. However, they have been probably over-exceeding our expectations, and it is a great thing to see. Iliad is one of those organizations that has teams at every level. Really, really fun to see. Daystar or Dreamlight from last season. Again, really good. And honestly, Hunter, I think both me and you expect them to be very high up in the standings at all points this season. A win here tonight probably boosts them right up to that number 2 seat, or that number 2 spot.
Oh, 100% it does. And obviously, you want to be in the best situation possible with this first half of the season. It's going to make the situation for the second half a lot easier to bear with. And then there comes the question of seeding, because Daystar is one of those teams that was in the top 3 last season, and part of that was them having an excellent beginning and only really having a couple of matches where they fell off. But going to the situation for Artemis, they need to keep all the momentum that they have had going, because Dex, this isn't just a situation where, oh, Iliad Artemis came in and they got like 4 or 5 of the worst teams right out the gate. There's definitely a couple in there, but when you beat teams like a young and beautiful Extinction Zero, at this point, Amplify was a pretty decent team. Those wins do mean a lot.
Yeah, but coming out of the gate here, looks like the teams are really going to be mirroring each other here, which is not necessarily the biggest surprise. However, it looks like the flex DPS is going to be Tracer. Freya, though, I think is the biggest surprise to me coming out of the gate. But again, the vertical movement ability on this map is something very, very important, and that is something that Freya can do very well. However, Hunter, I think it's the first time I've ever seen a fight taking place on the lighthouse here, or on the windmill.
Yeah, this is extremely rare. Maverick is in a rough situation, is having to eventually get a little bit of care, drop down a bit, has to play carefully. You don't want to get caught out at the wrong place, wrong time, like Narwhal getting rid of Industrial. Rough scenario now, online as Dr. Lucio, hard to really enter in a whole lot of engagement. Maverick is basically getting run down, tries to go for the assassination, nearly falls in the hole as Paincare manages to find a pick of their own. But the way it's going back and forth, Dex, this fight, so if it's really going to break him, but with Paincare going down, a lot of that damage is going to fall, and the rest of the team is likely to go right behind him.
Yeah, right now you do just see that point get capped right there. A really good first team fight there. I believe that's for Daystar. But I mean, now it's gonna be really interesting to see what's the re-engage here, because Industrial was almost able to get back, but then you had that trade out by the Freya, so they really did not engage onto anything here, and they're still playing a very dangerous game, being up on the windmill. Another boop could really end a team fight before it even gets started here, Hunter.
Yeah, you see trying to back out there is manually getting super low, eventually gonna get hit with a second stick, and now Duck on Quack has gone down, but still advantage definitely in their favor as Talisman hoping to find an additional something. Does have a pulse bomb sitting by, but unfortunately he's kind of out of the fight, but they're not exactly done yet either. Dion has made their way back in, forcing the cleanse out as well. So now Talisman has an opportunity to stick and realistically have nothing stop it. But Dex only seems to want to win desperately and manually, basically gets solo ulted as the point so close to flipping over, but finally, you're thinking it's finally going to start going their way as Maverick just hoping to finish things out.
I mean, Daystar doing a really good job just cutting out this ultimate here, but with those two picks right there coming very quickly, they're going to have to give it up. However, if you're Daystar, you're probably okay with that happening there. Yeah, you use your Consuming Rush in that one, but you have your own downpour, you have your own Pulse Bomb Bola Shot coming up here. However, you look to the other side, Pulse Bomb Bola Shot and Beat ready to go right now for Iliad Artemis. And Industrial finding Talisman out is huge. Narwhal, though, I mean, you're really not going to see a true engage until Narwhal probably has that beat ready to go, unless they find an early pick or two here, Hunter, and that's going to be very difficult with how aggressively Iliad Artemis is playing here, but they're playing it safe with that aggressiveness.
Yeah, and I like the way that they're going about that as well. Painkare has Pulse Bomb ready to go. There's a lot sitting by to be able to kind of just play around with and see what sticks to the wall, because between Painkare and a Duck on Quack, these ults can be extremely hit or miss. It literally is hit or miss in the sense. Bowl shot thrown into it, the void, unfortunately. So that's already an 0-for-1 scenario, but Talisman is ready. Maverick gets booped away into nothingness. And now without your tank, the team is starting to fall apart in Dex. 50-something% is probably all that's going to be on the Duck.
I mean, you'll be able to really even up the score here, which is what you really want. Actually, it looks like, yeah, it's 56-56. Really good team fights there by both sides, just to make sure that there's no one was really able to take a true lead. But now, you look at what Daystar has here. They didn't use Speed. They didn't use Pulse Bomb. They didn't use the Bola Shot. And they're coming up to another Consuming Rush. Granted, you're coming up to that same thing as well on the side of Artemis. It's just not going to be enough here in this fight. I mean, if you're Daystar, you could really try to take a team fight here. Drive, but the Pulse Bomb comes out from Talisman. Painkare, though, is better.
Yeah, unfortunately got stuck, tried to go in and find their own stick before they died. Unfortunately, did not happen. And now, door potentially going to open up here. Industrial has a beat sitting by. Narwhal has theirs to be able to be ready for the trade. But you got to be careful. In this scenario, manually going to go in, try to find the Bolo Shot. A Duck on Quake gets caught. Narwhal sitting super low. Doesn't have the beat anymore, as point does slip over. So you might be able to see some stabilization here, as Iliad Artemis should be able to clean things up on Graveyard. But Graveyard's still hanging around and actually might get out of here alive.
Yeah, gonna be able to get out alive, but Painkare finding Talisman there is huge. Honestly, I thought just getting rid of manually was also a big.
What?
Yo, Teleport coming out, traps 200. This is actually a big play if they can convert two of them, but no, they only find Dion. However, that's just perfect for them. The staggering picks coming out there, you're really only truly gonna have beats coming into this next fight, and with what the percentage is that, it could be final fight.
I mean, it 100% is final fight. It's going to come down to this, and it's literally just the battle of beats right now. And Industrial goes really aggro with it, and Maverick doesn't get caught. The one person that needed it caught that doesn't get freaking caught, and now all this squad can do is hope and pray that they can find the pick necessary. Painkare coming up on a pulse bomb nearly falls in the hole on accident, has to recall out, and now Flip ends up coming through. Is the cleanup hopefully coming through here for Daystar? With that, the cleanup, it 100% is. All you can do is throw your body onto the point, hope for a little something as Bolo comes out, but it is going to be nothing, no nada, as Maverick can just stall for the inevitable.
Bola coming out right there to seal the deal, but Industrial just going to get a staggering touch right there. That's not going to do much other than just prolong the length of this point here. A really good back and forth there, Hunter, and honestly, that's what we were really expecting from these two teams. Both of them are playing very, very good right now at the moment. But, I mean, you're just seeing the early kind of fights come out there, but the biggest mistake, and I don't even want to call it that much of a mistake, it was just Maverick not getting the beat. I don't know if they're on the other side of the building or they just weren't able to get back to Industrial in time, but Maverick not getting that beat is probably the difference between Artemis winning and losing that point right there. Daystar, though, took full advantage of it. However, going over to Lighthouse, Looks like no big swaps coming out here. We're probably going to see both those Symmetras go right back over to Tracer. But honestly, of all the points on this map, this is probably the best for Symmetra. But I just don't think we're going to see either of these teams really want to stick with the hard light architect here.
Yeah. And it's going to just go down the exact same way. Happily with that. It was very back and forth at the start. Hopefully, it's very back and forth again. But you see that progression already on top. Everyone trying to take over that lighthouse area, causing a little bit of separation. Unfortunately, Maverick not quite able to force Dion into an uncomfortable position, as Duck on Quack is actually the one that is in that scenario trying to peek, but honestly, is just kind of getting, like, body shot every single time, and Graveyard gets the finish. And now you're getting forced back further and further, and this point seems pretty securely to head over to Daystar to get us started.
I didn't think I would ever see 2 straight fights on top of the Windmill and Lighthouse, but yeah, here we are. But right now, I mean, just manually doing a lot here early on. Same thing with Graveyard, able to find that first pick, and now if you're Artemis, you just need to back up and regroup without losing anyone else. Duck and Quack is trying to do what they can to try to find a late pick. Narwhal almost falling there, but still, just both teams doing the right thing, backing out right there. Daystar not need to engage any further in than what they did here. But now Artemis is looking for an opening, and honestly, they need to try to find someone like Manly, who's just pumping in so much damage, allowing Dion and Talisman to really clean up those first 2 picks.
100%, and Dion thrown between a rock and a hard place. Most literally is sitting at 1 and eventually going to be burnt down. And now this is where you need to come together, find the assassination. Graveyard having the TP out, sitting super below, but Talisman throughout all this managed to keep things going and manually gets the solo over onto Industrial. And now suddenly it's heading back the other way. A stick directly into the wall, and a Kitsune rush that gets zilch. Unfortunately, it's still Pink Air hanging around, but that is temporary as 50% accounting. Oh, that's an unfortunate loss right there.
It's an unfortunate loss, but you got rid of Bola, you got rid of Talisman. However, you really wanted to hold on to your own Kitsune Rush, and that was a Bola of all time right there. So it goes flying off into the distance.
Yeah, you know what? We'll ask about that one later. I'm a little curious, but either way, 70% on the board. Entering Final Fight territory, Dion is coming up on their own. They're going to have Kitsune Rush in the beat. Doubles World's been sitting by, and unfortunately, Bardox doesn't have theirs anymore to match, and now this is where you're going to see the all-out aggression, and all they have to do, they have to back out. They can't beat here. They have to save that to be able to match the other one.
Yeah, and here's another thing. Dion has Downpour ready to go. Maverick not far away from it, but still, they don't have it here. You can see Downpour come out just to deny a touch coming out from Artemis.
Yeah, and Dion's in a weird spot. Might be giving their life just to be able to make this happen. And now, 98% on the board. Touch coming through from Pain Care. He's going to have to back out a little bit, but someone else has to get a touch. Barely comes into form. Holy moly, don't make me nervous like that, Iliad Artemis. As eventually, they're going to flip over the point. 99%. The bright side is, they didn't use any ults to win that fight.
They didn't use any ults to win that fight, but at the same time, you didn't see any ultimates come out from Daystar either, other than the Kitsune Rush to really start off that entire fight. But again, if I'm Dion, I could have seen a good opportunity there to use that Downpour to really trap in a lot of members of Artemis. They just didn't do it, but manually. Talk about a player who's been having themselves a map, and that Downpour finds a lot.
Yeah, it's going to find a couple of people. Only one really sticks to the ground in the process now. Maverick kind of has to back out, go for that Mega Health Pack. Unfortunately, just get caught out a little too early. There's not a whole lot you can do. Flip's going to come through. His Pain Care is going to be able to deliver one final touch. But that's the best way you can put it right there. One final touch. Pulse Bomb comes out. Getting one more touch in. Unfortunately, that is going to be the extent, as that's going to be a 2-0 to get started here from Daystar. And this was incredibly back and forth, but it feels like, unfortunately, a couple members are getting caught out from Iliad Artemis. I wanted to make the point of Dion pushing too far forward too early and getting caught out in the fight before, but unfortunately, you go and see Pain Care do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, you go back to that first point, it was 99 to 99, and it really felt like we were going to be in for that kind of battle all throughout this map, but Daystar, they came out, won a team fight, and never really let go of that momentum until they really made the mistake themselves of overextended and Dion being put into a really, really bad spot by themselves. Granted, you got a couple staggering touches there from Artemis just to make sure that point went into overtime, but you could kind of tell Daystar, they had the tools ready to go in that next fight, really to get them through it, get that point cap, and then all they had to do was probably just get rid of a staggering Tracer touch, which is what happened there. But Daystar, they really improved a lot from point 1 over to point 2. Artemis, they had opportunities. It's not miscommunication, but misplays from them really killed them there.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to see how it's going to change up because we're going from dive to dive. It's not only going to be changing up more than likely as we're heading over to Dorado, which the fact they're staying on Dorado, two bans come to mind. The most likely ban in my mind coming in for Artemis might be the Hazard. I think Dion was getting away with a lot on that Hazard, and it might be a scenario where you might want to force it away and pivot over to maybe the Diva or the Winston instead. That's the route I would go, and hey, turns out I'm dead on the money.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like even though both teams played Hazard, this is one of those things where you want to try to get them off of the Hazard to say, okay, what else do you have in that hero pool that maybe we can exploit here a little bit? So you get rid of Hazard, who, again, like I said, both teams use, and I thought both Hazard did very well. Dion doing a little bit better than compared to what Iliad Artemis was doing. However, that second ban is going to be a little bit more interesting here. I think you go after a DPS hero here. You could get rid of Freya. Again, another map where vertical movement ability is something that you really want on this map. So you get rid of Freya. Granted, Genji will be back in, but you can deal with the Genji. Something like Freya really did a lot there for both teams. So I think, hey, you just ban out something that both teams are playing. You see what else the other team has in their hero pool here to play.
Yeah, I could 100% see that Freya ban, and then us shifting over to a thing of like Genji Tracer, and maybe even Sojourn as well. Sojourn has still played a pretty fair amount as well. But we'll see what the case is going to be. Going to see if any team is going to be willing to make any swaps, but I think we're probably looking at the lineups being the exact same in the situation right here. I remember instances before of Amadou coming in a time or two in the past, I believe, but obviously it's been a little bit. I don't want to spread misinformation, but either way, I'm not spreading misinformation. I'm 2 for 2. I'm just on it today, Dex.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like Kiri is just another kind of safe ban coming out here. Hazard, I think, was the safest one for Artemis. Kiri, I think it's just a safe ban for both sides. Kind of like what I was saying with Freya potentially being banned out here, how it doesn't necessarily hurt either side, just kind of shows you what the other side has in that hero pool. But Freya might not necessarily get played by either team here. That's going to be the interesting thing to see. But without that Freya, without the Kiri, I mean, BAP is back available. You could see Brig come back out here. There's a lot of options now on the table for both these teams.
Oh, a ton on the table, and I like the fact that we're going to have this openness to be able to see a little bit more of the skill expression, because we saw that Hazard and Carry consistently throughout that entire first map. We don't get to see them now, and now it's exciting to see how teams are going to pivot. This is probably where we're going to see those heroes that were originally banned out make their appearance, at least in the form of that Baptiste, at least defensively, because I think that Baptiste is an incredible character nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of said, Baptiste has really started to come back into form here, being one of those top 3 supports picked in a lot of regions because good. Again, really good healing potential. You have Immortality Field, which is really, really strong. And then Amp Matrix really forces either teams to try to fight through it or just back out and kite it, which is something you really want out of a support ultimate. But right now, coming out of the gate, I mean, Winston for Dion, not necessarily a big surprise. Like I said, this is one of those maps where you want to get rid of Hazard, see what else you have, and this is what I really expect to see, Winston versus Diva. We saw it yesterday in South America where the Winston really won out, but right now you look at what you have over on the side of the defensive team. That Ana, I think, is going to make a big difference for them.
I think 100% it will as well. I love the way this looks. Manually on the Freya is going to be either a big hit or a big miss, but manually proved they can do a lot before. To see if they can do so again, but Mobutu in over on that Reaper to get things started, which means it's going to make Dion's life a lot harder to deal with, which means they can't just stay on their card and stall it out. They're going to have to go out, try to force them away. And unfortunately, for Mobutu, they played a little coordination there, and they are taken out.
Yeah, Bubble, the jump onto them, and then the nade just did enough right there. And look at what that does here to Artemis. They're waiting for their Reaper to get back because they really want that to be a deterrent to Dion right here. Granted, Maverick's doing a good job here, but I love this hold coming out here from Daystar.
Yeah, we'll see the little transition forcing out more and more members away. Exactly what you want to do. Take your time here. If you're Iliad Artemis, force them back further, or force them to go a little too far forward, because ultimates are already becoming a factor. Manually is about to have theirs, so is Graveyard, and now with Talisman down, you would figure this is where things could potentially start to fall apart, but Manually is sitting by with a potential game-changing ult. It's going to throw in, hit Moira directly into the face, but Murloc's going to live, and it's Mobutu again who's going to get taken down first, and without that, Dion's just going to move in with a nano, run it down, and end that fight.
And honestly, everyone, for Artemis should just be backing up. That's exactly what's happening in Motobu, giving up on the Reaper, going over to the Echo instead. A hero that you don't see that often anymore, but this is definitely one of the maps where Echo could find a lot of value. However, spoke a little bit too soon. Over to the Sombra instead. We saw this a little bit yesterday in South America, but I like it here now. I mean, you can get that hack onto the Winston. However, I think you're more focused on that backline, especially with having Graveyard there. Getting rid of the Ana is the strongest thing you can do here, but a huge anti.
Massive anti, and now Marduk's is gone. You lose out on your Coalescence, and now it's hard to do anything. Maverick is taking a nice little nappy nap, and Beat is invested as well. So now they're going to go all out here. Maverick is going to get inevitably, I was going to say demeched, but actually stays up, and now you've got rid of the back line. And now all you need to do is group them up together and just run the rest of them down.
And right now, Painkare, this is a point where you need to see Painkare really start to take over a lot. That Tracer on that backline, especially with Graveyard on that Ana, you really need to have a lot of pressure put on them, and that should be Painkare's one and only job right now.
Yeah, and Dion gets hacked out, obliterated on the spot. Tailsman has a pulse bomb ready to go, is waiting for the moment. Unfortunately, the moment is lost and gone. As Narwhal suddenly has two, EMP is ready and is going to send it. This is a risky maneuver, but it looks like it's going to pay off as Flip going to come through, and all Graveyard can do is die on the point. It's 3.5 minutes on the board for Iliad Artemis. They took a lot of risks in those two fights, but they paid off.
Took a lot of risk, and I mean, the EMP, I think, was a risk well worth it right there. You wanted to win that fight. You didn't want to have either one of those supports right there really keep that fight going for Daystar right there. And now your Artemis, you get some momentum here. You get the high ground, which is a really, really important thing. And you're still holding on to the bomb here for Maverick, that good remeching tool. However, you're about to deal with yet another nano coming out here from Graveyard, probably going on to someone like Dion, who can do the most with it here.
No, 100%, and that is going to be deadly just as it was last time. It helped turn the fight that they were kind of in the losing effort of at one point. So now everyone's hanging back, and this is the way I love seeing Daystar play. They are playing safe. Nobody is where they shouldn't be. Everyone is where they are supposed to be, and Dion is waiting for a right opportunity, finds it beautifully, gets rid of Painkare, and now this is where you see the separation. Polo shot thrown direct down to Industrial, gonna clean out house, and now Maverick needs to start running for the hills as they do get manually, and Marduk again is gonna invest here. Unfortunately, can't get healing on Mobile 2. Dion does go down in the process, but I think the damage at this point, at least for, Daystar, is already done.
Yeah, I mean, that Coalescence fighting Dion now is huge because that actually allows Artemis to push here. I don't think without that kill on the Dion, Artemis is pushing at all. They would have to fall back. Dion, though, they come back out with Primal Rage. You still have Nano ready for Graveyard. However, you look at everything that Artemis is coming up to as well. Beat, not that far. Well, I was going to say not that far away from EMP, but that's going to slow it down here just a little bit. And now this is a really good opportunity here for Daystar to stabilize. And hey, they don't even really need to put up a fight. Artemis already backing up.
Yeah, and that's the right call right there. You get everybody out alive. You're going to this fight with 3 ultimates apiece. You're coming up on 4 apiece as well. And Mobutu getting closer and closer to that EMP is going to make a massive difference here. I'd be grinding all that damage into Dion as Dion is playing her really aggressively and gets stuck away, forced to eventually go into that Primal Rage, back out a little bit. They trade the 1-for-1 with the aggressive beat coming through, trying to force everybody off of that high ground. Make as much disruption as possible as Marduk's of all people gets hit with the pulse bomb. And now Dion just trying to keep the rest of the team cared for, and Iliad Artemis, again, they take the risk, they go aggressive, but it does not pay off.
And I think a big thing right there, Maverick actually able to escape with their mech is so huge for them. If they get demech, they probably use that bomb, and then they're just going to be left there. No one's going to go after them. They're just going to be forced to probably walk off the map and reset. Maverick escaping with mech is huge, especially when you look at what Motobu has here. That EMP is what got them the first point last time. They might need it here early on, especially with 3-4 members of Daystar playing close together. That could open up a lot and, hey, potentially cancel out a rally.
Yep, and now we have an EMP ready to go, and I imagine this isn't probably going to be used solo, but there's a couple of people sitting in one spot as Marduk got to take the aggressive route here with Coalescence. Everyone in a room. That is not a place you want to be as you see Motobu waiting for the perfect opportunity, and unfortunately for them, everyone's going to have to throw on their bodies on the cart eventually.
But fighting manually out there is huge. Again, a lot of damage out there early on. Industrial, though, not who you want to see fall. But there's the EMP on the 3.
Yeah, but it gets slept out, gets stopped. Maverick's going to have to drop the bomb here. Pulse ends up sticking. The bomb is going to kill a whopping nobody. No remech to the name. Painkare has just gotten out there. Motobu is the only person who can touch. Unfortunately, getting a touch is going to be nearly impossible here. He's going to be able to try to break through. He is going to get the touch barely, but is it going to matter?
I mean, you're looking now at Industrial try to get back. Actually, going to be Painkare, who will get the staggering touch. Can Industrial get back there, though? The answer is a surprising yes. But right now, Hunter, you can kind of see the writing on the wall. And I think even Artemis sees the writing. They just understand it's just going to be one after one after one. You touch that card, it's basically the kiss of death. But hey, you're able to almost get it to that second point if you're Artemis. You give yourself a really good win condition here, because first point is very, very difficult to get through, especially that choke immediately after the first kind of little phase here, where a lot of teams end up struggling. And then, I mean, still pushing the cart through the fountain there is kind of a weird choke in itself, because even though there's a lot of space, you do normally see teams just get stuck there.
Oh yeah, it feels like more than what I've seen in the past is teams getting stuck on that second checkpoint. Which, to be fair, in the way the map is now, I think it's kind of understandable why it has become a common occurrence. And now the question is whether or not the game plan is going to change up at all. And by the looks of it, everyone is, for the most part, stuck in their ways. Mardox, though, is going to be going over on the Baptiste that they showcased for about 10 seconds at the beginning and swapped over to that Moira, which, honestly, overall, I don't think was a bad pick. I think the ultimate served them in a couple of those fights, but unfortunately, I think the Baptiste is probably better served in this situation.
Yeah, no, it probably is. And like I said, I feel like we both, me and you, feel like Bap's in a really good spot right now. Graveyard TCS with the Ahri, that would have been fun, but I felt like that Ana gave just too much value last map, especially without the Kiriko available. I mean, you saw Graveyard find multiple 2-3-man antis, which allowed them to play aggressively, allowed or really forced Artemis to play in spots and just play passively when they really truly didn't want to here.
Yeah, 100%. And now the playstyle has to be very specific here. Maverick wants to stay on this card as much as possible. Everybody's going to look at Maverick, especially Dion, who's able to kind of bypass the entirety of that defense matrix. As Industrial gets hit with that anti-nade, has to play a little bit safe. Not much you can really do when the anti-nade hits the way things are right now anyhow. But either way, Dex, both teams just hoping to find some position as manually with the double stick nearly gets rid of Mabutu.
And right now, I mean, if you're Artemis, you're kind of allowing them to get all this space. Finding Dion, though, that's a huge pick, because now you can slowly just eat away at that time bank, and you're finding some more picks on the way out.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, ult economy is becoming important very quickly. Mabutu just nearly in a little too far, nearly gets caught out. Maverick in the same boat as they have to give up a little bit of space, but now, Ultimate's coming online for Mardox and Manually.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Mardox manually not that far away. I think Mardox, though, their ultimate's going to be a little bit more valuable here, because it's just going to be able to buy them some space, especially as you go through this choke, and that's exactly what it's going to do. However, it's not used on the choke, it's used just to force back Dion.
Yeah, and to be fair, it kept Maverick alive in that situation, and now you've gone without Talisman. Dion has to hang around the bubble and get all the care in the world, has to try to dive up to find something. Unfortunately, they're diving into a little bit of danger as Dion gets extremely low, trying to get out of there. Maverick is going to eat the bolo shot. That's gone, and now we're at the halfway mark. Mojabu does get taken out near the end there by Talisman, and Rally is expended as well. This is an incredibly risky move, but to be fair, I normally wouldn't hate it, as Marog is going to get pulse bombed as well. This is a lot of us being used in a fight that is essentially over.
I mean, you use the rally there thinking that maybe you could stall out yourself on that cart for as long as you possibly could and allow your teammates to get back. You do have the close response, and look, you already see Artemis backing up. They're going to re-engage here pretty quickly. That beat is going to become the most valuable thing here right now for Industrial, so they cannot fall first. Maverick has the remecking tool, which is very, very good here, especially for this last 100 seconds here potentially on this hold.
Yeah, and an aggressive bomb is used. That was a Hunter-tained bomb if I've ever seen it. Holy moly, Painkare has been taken care of now, and now Industrial has come up clutch with this beat. Unfortunately, Maverick is perhaps a little too far in for their own good. Beat's going to come up online. It's going to barely keep them in the mech, as Marduk and Maverick have to throw everything in the kitchen sink to get in there. Unfortunately, they're being booped away, literally a 1/10 of a meter or a 100th of a meter away. But all you can do is really hang on here until you're eventually taken out. And it's a good hold overall. Unfortunately, I think just a mismanagement with the ults there.
Yeah, I mean, I understand bombing aggressively if you think, hey, we're gonna be able to find a pick there, but once you find nothing with that, it just becomes a little bit of a waste. And Industrial's beat kept Maverick alive there when they got anti, which was huge, but it just wasn't enough to get them any healing through that immortality field. I mean, right now though, you're coming up to 3 ultimates. Both your DPS and Mardox does have that Ametris here, which again really needs to be used in a good spot this time. It did work last time, but the Nano's out, and that's actually not the worst one.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And plus the sleep on to Momotu. This is worst case scenarios. Manly has found another, and Maverick needs to go on this point. Yep, he's going to go to the point, die on the point as well. As Painkiller just has to focus on trying to get out of there, as eventually kill will come through on Maverick, as now we're entering one fight territory.
Momotu going to swap over here too. They were on Genji going over to Reaper here. Painkiller does have a Pulse Bomb, but that Pulse Bomb is going to need to be massive here to really slow down anything that Daystar's throwing at you. Because again, they have Pulse Bomb, they have Rally. That's the biggest thing this time around. Narwhal going to probably find a lot more value with it here. But I honestly, even though we criticized it last time, I think it actually ended up doing the job it wanted to do. Maverick though, already almost demeched, and someone has to be stalling out this card, and it looks like it's up to Painkiller.
Yeah. Having to hang around there, has the Pulse Bomb ready to go, but needs care, has to hang back a little bit as Maverick thrown on there. Body's got to stay on, literally a 1/5 of a meter away, and now everyone's going to run through. And unfortunately, Pinker, all they can do is stay on this point as they're going to be picked off one after another. And it's going to be a match point already here for Daystar. Iliad Artemis, they are fighting back hard. But Daystar, this is the consistency that we saw from them last season, and it has very clearly carried on to this one too.
Yeah, and again, I mean, they're really executing off of just small mistakes by Iliad Artemis. You go back to point map 1, where, hey, the beat not getting onto the tank there was a big thing that really slowed down Artemis. And I think this time around, the aggressive bomb is what almost killed Artemis here. I mean, you hold that on for a remaking opportunity, you're probably... I mean, you could still make the argument that Daystar's going to get that first point anyway, but I think you have a much closer fight for that first point right there. And even maybe getting that time back down a little bit further. But once that bomb went out, finding nothing, like I said, it really hurt Artemis there and Daystar. They got all the momentum they needed off that, and Hunter, they never lost a fight after that aggressive bomb came out.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And it's an unfortunate situation when it obviously comes over to Iliad Artemis. They're fighting back how they can, but it's those little moments that are being taken advantage of big time by a team like Daystar. And that's what a team like Daystar is going to do to you. Those little mistakes are going to become big ones in their eyes, and they're going to take advantage of it almost every single time. But Iliad Artemis are finally deciding, you know what, maybe dive isn't the call anymore. They are changing up the vibes big time as our third and potentially final map on the board is going to be New Junk City.
And hey, I think this is a really good map here for Iliad Artemis. They want to bring us to something maybe a little bit more up-pace, fast tempo, and maybe they just want to try to get us off a dive here. Granted, you could still see Winston, you could still see Diva, but that's really outside the first point. I think those two heroes really struggle on point 1. You look to something more of Ramatra, Orisa, Junker Queen, potentially even Sigma coming out here, but we do know what the first ban from the map is. No Cowboy going down under this time around. So no Cassidy, which again, I mean, both teams I felt like played Cassidy a little bit there, but you could really make the argument that Daystar found a little bit more value really with that Cassidy pick.
I will agree in that situation. I think it's 100% reasonable to say. And Cassidy, obviously, I don't know if it's the most substantial ban you could have here, but this is also a situation where, regardless if you like it or not, you have to play for the long haul when it comes to bans. You know, you don't know what's going to come in these next 2 maps, and you have to kind of act accordingly. And I like the fact that we're using the Cassidy here and now, and not something that perhaps is going to be more substantial, so to say. Because you're going to see them have to flex around. If you see something where you win this map, it's like, oh, that was hampering us before, you might get the opportunity to ban that and kind of just learn off of that. But we'll see what that second ban is pretty soon. Of course, it has to be either a tank or a support. And with us going to a brawl-type map, I mean, what would you expect to get rid of here in a situation like this? Don't look.
I would say Orisa, but... I mean, Hunter, we saw this a little bit yesterday in South America. It didn't necessarily work out that well, but I don't think it was a fault of the hero itself. But we're going to see Zarya banned out here, and that's always a fun thing to see Zar get banned out in these series because you just normally don't expect to see Zarya that often, but Zarya has really started to come into a state of her own here where I think she's not necessarily meta, but she's kind of like how she always is, just right outside of meta. Meaning, if you go up against a team that is not prepared for it, you can absolutely run it over. However, without seeing Zarya, I think that allows Orisa, Ramatra to really get a lot of value in this map.
Yeah, a ton of value. So I'm excited to see what is going to happen here. And again, it's Iliad Artemis, backs against the wall here. This isn't exactly a neck-breaking loss for them, but it would be a stop of momentum that they have had for quite a period of time now. As taking a look as Mobutu still going to be in that lineup, staying in here, potentially going back to that Reaper. It wouldn't surprise me, but right now, obviously, we'll wait until we're out the doors to really talk much about these comps. So to be honest, I think the support line on the right, at least, looks to be the truth.
Graveyard probably could make a swap over to something else here at some point. Yeah, the Kiri being back in play makes a lot more sense, but still right now you see Daystar kind of like going through picks right here. Dion though on the Diva does make, or the Hazard, or one of those heroes does make a lot of sense. Maverick though, playing the Mauga again. You don't see Mauga that often, but Mauga's starting to really make a little bit of a comeback here, especially with the state they're in now. A little bit more fair, and teams, honestly, I don't feel like necessarily hate playing against them. They do hate playing against a really good Mauga, however.
100%. We'll see how the Mauga is going to be represented as, you know, I wouldn't say the start you're hoping for right there, as Maverick no longer has little Speedy Gonzalez with them, but we're trading back and forth. Maverick has gotten rid of 2 already, looking for a stop on the Graveyard, who's going to be able to TP out of there. But right now, you need to kind of pile in on one person in particular. Unfortunately, Picare is caught out, and it looks like Motobu might be able to stay on the point and at least force a cap, but Maverick still has to play safe.
Yeah, but again, just with how strong Mauga is right now, you don't necessarily see 3 members of Daystar decide to say, hey, we're going to go in and try to fight it Maverick. I mean, that's just how much presence that Mauga could have here. And right now, I think Painkare, we didn't talk about on the venture, is the right pick. However, Maverick taken out early.
Yeah, now you can put this pressure on the point. Bodies are going to have to pile in one after another until eventually they're just going to have to eat dirt here momentarily, as everyone is doing a good job hanging and staying alive right here, but the supports are eventually going to be taken down, and Paycare doing all they realistically can. Have gotten rid of 2. Unfortunately, a 3rd is not going to happen, as Mobutu is just going to get out of dodge and reset.
Yeah, but again, I mean, Painkare able to find 2 picks right there really is huge, because it allows Artemis to come back in here and try to play quickly. But Maverick, again, just maybe overextending themselves here, and no supports right there to heal them up. They need to be a little bit smarter that time around. I mean, just with that 1 pick there, by the next time there's a real true team fight, Hunter, the lead is going to be about even, or hell, you could see Daystar have the lead. Marnox, though, what is going on?
They're just getting picked up. Same thing over here. Mobutu is literally in the middle of nowhere, is between a rock and a hard place. He's going to try to escape, is barely going to be able to, but gets sliced away. And they might not even get a proper fight in here, considering Rush is used, and it's going to force everybody back, but all that's going to be is a deterrent at best.
It's a deterrent, but if you're Daystar, you love this. Look at where the Katsura Rush was used, so far away from point. Yeah, you're using your own here because you understand you win a fight, or hell, you don't even need to win a fight. You just need to stagger out long enough, and at this point, if you're going to see anything else being invested here, you're getting so much value just from the beats.
Yeah, beats used, blades used, bomb is online, and Painkare is right around the corner from an ult, and now Maverick's going to have to try to hang alive here. Goes for the downpour. It's going to go down. Not sure how much it really finds in terms of value, but the point flip has come through. Manually ends up winning the Tracer 1v1, and Graveyard's going to help clutch it up. And Graveyard putting this point to rest. It's going to be 1-0. As that almost turned over, I got to be honest, but Daystar again clutches up.
It almost turned over, but I'll say this, at least for Artemis, you ult traded evenly. It's not like you didn't. It's not like you saw Daystar hold on to, you know, a lot of ultimates. No, they used 4 ultimates as well. Yeah. And Maverick now swapping over to the Jungle Queen. I like this here. The Malgo necessarily wasn't working for them. They go over to Hazard. It didn't necessarily work for them that much either. And now I think the Queen is the right pick here. The Tectonic Shot coming out here pretty early on, just trying to act as a deterrent, but everyone's so far away that it's not going to find any. Okay, never mind. It finds some value.
Yeah, and that's important because that's the only other ult on the table, as Graveyard going to have the TP out. Everyone's in a weird scenario trying to get somebody knocked out of mech, as Talisman has gotten rid of 2 now. This fight really should have been in their favor, and now it's looking like it's against them. Everyone is separated. You can't really find anybody if you're Maverick. You get Dion of all people, but Tailsman, third final blow of the fight, looking for a fourth potentially, as it's just Maverick and Mardux, and unfortunately, neither are along for the world.
I mean, right now, this is kind of the series we've been seeing from these two teams here. A lot of scrappy fights, but Iliad Artemis is just never able to come out on top of them. Daystar is always able to do something, somehow, some way to win them. And I mean, you could have really looked at that saying, okay, once you lose Dion's mech, they should not have won that fight, but Talisman went off on a terror-finding 3. You had manually come back in, get a pick there. Maverick now going back over to the Malga after the 1 life on the Queen, and Dion over to the Hazard now. I mean, it's almost like we're seeing a lot of swaps come out here because everyone, or neither team necessarily thinks they have the right comp for the other, but with how often we're seeing changes, I feel like we're only 1 death away from seeing even more.
Yeah, and now another blade is ready, is trying to cut through them. Getting booted away momentarily, still has the ability to cut through. Gets pretty much triple booted away. And now you're looking at potentially that fight when coming through his pain care. Got rid of a couple of their own. Dion still trying to hang around, got taken care of by Maverick as 76% on the board, 1 fight territory realistically, as Ult Economy has taken a big reset.
And like I said, 1 life for all these players, and then immediately swapping back over to something else. Dion now back onto the Diva. I mean, this is going to probably be what this map is, just counter swapping each other here a lot. Maverick on the Malga, Dion now over back to the Diva, like I said, to really just negate Maverick as much as they possibly can here. The beat out from Industrial. I mean, Artemis, they want to try to win this fight early, but they're not finding the picks.
Yeah, Narwhal does end up going down. Dion gets slammed down onto, gonna get DMX, so this should be theirs. But again, Tailsman and Manually, they're hanging around. They are getting picks. And now, still have your tank in the... Yeah, 100%. And eventually, Tailsman is getting taken care of. Dion takes the reset as they're gonna try to get 1 more touch here.
Maverick not going to swap immediately over to something else here. I like that. You're not that necessarily far away from Cage, and 1 good fight will probably get you. You had the lead on this point. Beat, though, coming online here for Daystar. You're going to have a Blade and a Pulse Bomb, which, I mean, honestly, one of those ultimates will probably force out the beat, unless Narwhal and Daystar want to use it aggressively here.
Yeah, Beat comes up online. Flip going on in the backline, by the way, as Graveyard gets rid of Pain Care. They go for the risky maneuver, and the point flips over, by the way. Industrial gets taken care of, and Maverick just has a defense matrix in their face, and they can't get any heals. Mobutu has to single-handedly be the clutch factor here, is going to have to go and try to get a touch, but they're literally the closest person by a mile. They're going to get the touch, but unfortunately, their team is dead around them.
Mato's going to need to basically do the 5Ds dodge, while dodge, duck, juke, dive, and dodge here, and they're not going to be able to do that, and they're eventually just going to end up losing the point right there. And again, another very close point. I really thought Artemis had figured something out right there, and it's unfortunate because look at what the ultimates that Artemis was going to come in that next fight with Cage, Kitsune Rush, Pulse Bomb, and all you really had on the other side. Granted, you did see Kitsune Rush, Pulse Bomb come out from Daystar there, but that Cage would have been so important for them there.
Yeah, Industrial is separated from the squad, getting a little bit of care. Maverick still trying to stay over on this Malga. Unfortunately, again, Graveyard, Talisman have been clutching up these entire fights. The amount of fights in a row so far that Artemis has gotten the first blow, but then you have someone like Talisman or Manually or Graveyard that comes through and just finds a 2 or 3K. It's been absurd.
I mean, Talisman right now is playing out of their mind, but Manually has been quietly outperforming, I think, everyone in this lobby. 22 elims on 2 kills at the moment. They are really showing a masterclass on this Tracer, but still, there's a cap going over towards Daystar. Artemis, you're still holding on to a lot of these ultimates, but you need to find a good time to use them, and honestly, you really need to start using them fast here, because you're really looking at Daystar coming up to a much, much better ult economy.
Yeah, 100%. Rush coming through. Talisman is still waiting for the opportunity. In fact, I think it's still probably going to pop the blade this fight right here. Wait for it to run out. Force them to come down. Set up for an opportunity. Because there is a beat around the corner. But the question is whether or not it's going to come in time right now. Talisman is going to get caught within this cage fight. But it is Bertoy immediately, by the way. Holy crap. And now Slice and Dice ready to come through. Hoping to get at least 1 here. Does get 1. Pop back into the fight. 60% on the board. And it's going to be some late deaths coming through here, as this is not looking pretty.
I mean, it was the Cage made of paper mache right there, essentially. 2, 3 ultimates gone there for Artemis, and now Maverick being staggered out. And you can see Maverick, they're just accepting it here. They are accepting they're not going to be able to get back to the safety of their teammates here. They're trying everything, but it's not going to be enough. Matubu is back, but the Pulse Bomb can only do so much, and you need a touch here. There's the touch, but where is the rest of the team?
Rest of the team is currently going back to the spawn room one at a time. Otobutu has to be clutch. It's the pulse bomb. It's the only thing left standing. It's got to be big time. Unfortunately, it doesn't even come out. And for Daystar, their dominant streak will continue forward, winning in 3-0 fashion. And Iliad Artemis, I think this is a very unfortunate situation of their strategy getting figured out very quickly and them just not having a proper workaround.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, Iliad Artemis was able to keep it pretty close in a lot of these team fights. Outside of Dorado, I really think like you could be 1-2 team fights away from winning a point on Ilios, and you never know what happens on point 3. You are so close to winning the second point here in New Junk City, then the third point kind of got away from you there pretty quickly. I mean, the counter swapping was very interesting to see. I felt like Iliad Artemis really needed to keep doing that because it was forcing Daystar to make all those swaps as well. And when that was happening, Artemis was actually having a little bit more of an advantage. But like you said, Daystar keeping their momentum going here, that now moves them up to 5-1 on the season, which again, right now in NA is one of the better teams. Outside of them and Young and Beautiful, there's only one other team right now that you could really talk about being better, and that's Boop Troop, who's the only undefeated team left here, which, Hunter, I think by this point last season, we still had 2-3 undefeated teams left. NA is a little bit more competitive, or NA Masters a little bit more competitive this season, but I think that's really showing you that you could still have these teams have 3-4 losses that are still going to be names that we're talking about here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think 100%. I still think, despite the results of today, I think those are two teams that should realistically still be in that top 8. I think it's just a really unfortunate situation for Artemis in this situation, but they still have a schedule in front of them that I think is extremely doable. Just like with their next 3 games, with what they have. They got In Control, Emote Down Mid, Hive Mind, which is a very complex sort of thing, because I think you have 2 of the scrappiest teams in the entire division sitting in front of your face. In Control, they should be able to take without, I would think, much difficulty. But again, you never really know in these scenarios, because this is that time last year where Alternate was getting on a really good run, and then they had a lot of games in a row, and things kind of fell apart. And that's what's coming up for this squad. They have 5 games within the span of a week, which for some teams, they're great with that. Some teams, they go on a loss, and it can continue on and on and on.
And another thing, we came into this one talking about the difference in these two teams' record. This was Iliad Artemis's 9th game.
Yeah.
Only Daystar's 6th. Iliad Artemis now is on the back half of their season, while Daystar has a couple games to go before they get to that halfway mark here now. So every game for Iliad Artemis starts to apply a little bit more pressure to them to find those victories, because we saw here tonight, they have the potential to really make a lot of noise. They just need to get over the hump against teams like Daystar here, where they weren't able to do it. They were close, but never got that cigar. Daystar always kept it away from them. Daystar, though, like I said, a lot of games ahead of them, meaning like, hey, they could get off a couple wins here now in a row and still be looked at as one of those top teams like we really expect them to be.
Yeah, and it is going to be a gauntlet for them to find that out here. Just, if we want to take into representation, the match they have here today on this is the 5th of September. They have games on the 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 14th, 15th, 17th. That many games in the span of less than 2 weeks. It is going to be crazy how much the record could possibly change here. But you know what, you want a down-to-earth prediction as to where Daystar is going to be at the end of this right here. I'm going to throw it out there, and if I'm right, I'll be really, really happy. I would say, realistically, I think, with who they have, I think they can go 11-4. That is my guess for this team.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that game on Sunday, though, against Young and Beautiful is definitely going to be one that I think a lot of people should end up watching. It's a really interesting game. Again, that was the grand finals and playoffs last season for Masters tier, and the 2 teams that went on to play those promotion relegation games. The fact they're playing probably around both teams' mid-season marks is huge for both of them, because they could really look forward to the back half of the season, knowing that they got rid of probably one of their toughest games out in the early part of their season.
Yeah, 100%. So excited to potentially see that one, see if anybody picks that up. I'd be very excited to see that. But speaking of picking things up, we have ideas of what we want to do for next week, but of course, it's a situation where you kind of have to just stay glued to Twitter, wait for us to post away the schedule, and figure out what we're going to be doing. Of course, we'll still be covering North and South America, as especially with South America, I would say the game that could define the season happening next week, which I think it's what we'll probably be aiming for to do. But I'm going to keep going in circles with this. You just got to stay tuned. You got to figure it out. I wish we could tell you right now. I wish I could throw a schedule over like whoosha, but
You got to talk to other people.
yeah, exactly. But either way.
But I mean, hey, this was a tough game for Iliad, but they still showed us a lot in this one. I think they're gonna be able to bounce back here pretty well. But again, like you said, they have a tough stretch coming up here, and we're gonna really learn a lot more about this Artemis team because, like I said, we had question marks coming into the season for them. Some of them have been answered, but there's still a couple more that need to be answered. And in this next stretch of game for them, I think we're gonna be able to get all the answers we're looking for from them.
Yep, I 100% think so as well, and I cannot wait to see it. But that is it for our week here for FACEIT League. Like I said, we'll have everything figured out for next week and what games we're going to do. Obviously, we're here on Wednesdays and Fridays at the very least. We'll see if we decide to pick up anything outside of that realm. And with the way things are going, the rescheduling of South America, the crazy amount of games that are on different dates for North America, the possibility is definitely there. But you're just going to have to wait and see as we'll bring back some more FACEIT League action for you next week. So everybody, be safe, have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.